Banderacon, Captain's Log, Close to the Ledge, Episode 4, Sinking City. This game is so goddamn close to the ledge that it hurts me. And to go back a little bit, basically, I was looking forward to this game for what feels like forever. And I remember, at least for what feels like a couple of years, waiting on Steam when it was meant to have due this time in the summer. And then it just didn't arrive, and it didn't arrive, and it didn't arrive. And then I found it on the Epic store of all places. And I love Steam. I think Steam is fantastic, and I buy most of my stuff off of it. But if it's going to hold out on me, it's just a person that sells me games, or it's just a corporation. If Half-Life 3 came out on Epic, we all know where we'd be, okay? But let's be honest with each other for a minute and move on. So I started playing it, and I love me some Call of Cthulhu, and I love me some good Call of Cthulhu, and for a time everything was fantastic. The game in and of itself, just to go down that little road, it's a fairly basic third-person shooter RPG. I say shooter, it doesn't have a super emphasis on it, but that is the combat mechanic at play. You're basically going around this waterlogged town during what appears to be the beginnings of the Cthulhu course, but you don't know it because, of course, you don't. It runs along the same kind of vein as everyone in the zombie apocalypse not knowing what zombies are for some reason. A person who is obviously, for those in the know, goddamn Haster comes along. Or is it Naliothrotep? Haster's of the King in Yellow. Either way, the King in Yellow basically propositions you to find some shit, and you're on your way. And the game looks good. The mysteries, the plot is pretty okay. The mysteries in and of itself, are quite good. The game kind of gives you this idea that there is more freedom than there actually is, which I'll explain in a minute. I'll round off on that in a minute. But you get to more or less free roam around this town, and the map system, it gives the idea of authenticity in that it basically says, well, this area is somewhere between this and that street. So you look on the map, you find those roads, and given it's not a huge map and the streets are quite wide, you put a little marker down there and you can make your own markers, say something here, something there. The thing about that is it's very easy to find everything, and it just kind of feels like the UI is making you populate itself. So I don't know, your mileage may vary on that one. I can imagine somebody got a great deal of fun out of that. The exploration is fairly standard. You've got on foot, and you've got on basically one of those prop boats that you use in the swamp, as I remember it. And yeah, exploration's fine. The place looks suitably fucked up and sort of pre the depths are coming chthonic apocalypse, which I can't complain. The standard of graphics, I am no graphics head. I couldn't tell you your frames per second or your Radeons or your GTIs, but I don't remember it ever really being a problem. Now, to come back to the game itself. So you are effectively a PI, private investigator, in your wonderful film noir-esque Cthulhu-verse. The game has an investigation mechanic where obviously you follow clues, you go to an area, you usually encounter some form of arena, and then you pick through some clues. Now, one of the ideas in play is that your character can see things that no one else can see because of some encounter he had that he doesn't care to remember and that haunts his nightmares. You can then kind of put the Batman vision on, and you get usually, I think it's 3 to 4 vignettes that you basically choose the order of what they happened in. You can't fail the puzzle or get the wrong conclusion. And then you have what I'd assume is the mental corkboard or the mental palace, where you have an element like this person shot this person. And you have usually the 2 binary choices and suspect, and then you make your mind up about what happened. Now, the thing with it is I've heard 2 sides to this. In my opinion, the problem is that at no point can you get the answer wrong. You can't go. One of the investigatory things you do is you go to what I think is a newspaper archive, and you look up specific things, and you get an answer that usually goes onto your clue board. But the problem is that you can't get the wrong answer, and you can't really research things yourself. You're more or less just choosing a set of keywords, and it spits out either a positive result, or you have to try again. So it's not like you can get the wrong date and you lose that clue. in that sense, I guess I'm just lamenting that there wasn't a more in-depth investigative side of things, which, given how much trouble the game had just getting out there to begin with, fair enough. We can always lament what isn't, but that's why this is called Close to the Ledge and not my fucking greatest hits of all time. Now, the other part I was going to say, the other way I've heard it told is that a lot of the decisions that you make usually have the habit of tricking you into making what you think is quote-unquote the good or right decision, but is usually the worst one along the line. I'm going to spoiler one of them. In the beginning, you are charged with finding the murderer of the son of one of the ruling families, the Throgmortons. He has some definitely not quite humanish features, and the Throgmorton / Innsmouthers, which, let's be honest, everyone knows a bit of Cthulhu, they're kind of looked on sideways by the general populace, but the Throgmortons are an old money family and they are absurdly wealthy. Someone's killed this bloke's nephew. You can go on to find out that they'd gone on an expedition very far under the city, which is still mostly flooded, found something that had made most of them lose their shit, and that the younger Throgmorton had been killed by a bloke there. You then have the option to either say it wasn't his fault, he was driven mad by the thing, or to blame him for it and stick him for it. Now, the guy tells you, hey, I was driven mad by this thing, it wasn't my fault, I was under the grip of something I don't understand. The heartstrings naturally say, okay, cut this guy a break. If you follow the clues, you later find out that he had been paid by the Esoteric Order of Dagon to have anyone who comes back from the thing killed, and he's just lied to you quite convincingly. On the other hand, if you do sell him down the river, you effectively start a race war between the Throgmortons and the greater populace of the city. There is no right answer. And I cannot help but admire that, but at the same time, it just, I don't know, there could have been more. It could have been more. I never actually finished this one. I played it for, I think, a good 20-something hours, maybe 30 hours, and kind of, along with like Days Gone, it just lost momentum for me, and I kind of stopped caring, because you're going to the same locations, having the same kind of tired gunfights that, even at the beginning, are particularly thrilling. The game has a sanity mechanic, but like only the barest of one, where you have a linear sanity bar next to your health bar, and when it starts going down, you start having phantasmal enemies appear, and when it depletes, you die. And it's lazy. It could have been more. Again, Call of Cthulhu is one of the things you can absolutely go ham. I mean, everyone knows sort of Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem, that really played with the rules, or wrote the rules in this case, for how sanity can be. I guess at this point I'm not being particularly fair, I'm just describing what my perfect version of that game would be. But hey, here we are. The game has a fairly kind of truncated skill tree, which, as I remember, only had about 3 or 4 branches, most of them just tied on to hold more ammo, hold more kit, make more ammo, make more kit, because there's a crafting mechanic in there, but it's about as deep as a puddle. Yeah, it was a game that obviously had a lot going on behind the scenes, and there are better men / people than I who have spent hours explaining the problems that it went through even getting out and being produced, and I would absolutely recommend watching them. Can't think of any to mind, but you know, that's what YouTube and Google exist for. I don't remember the soundtrack being particularly fantastic, only in the sense that I don't remember it, but I will say there was an absolutely fucking amazing song by Dan Ball on YouTube, and I thought it was just perfection. Crystallized the idea of what could have been in that perfectly, but I think he just knocks it out of the park damn near every time. Anyway, Close to the Ledge episode 4. I actually would still recommend that most people go and play this game. Throw a little salt and steam and buy it off Epic Store anyway. That's not your call for action today. Your call for action is to actually have a read of one of H.P. Lovecraft's stories. A lot of them are pretty short. I remember The Colour from Out of Space being not massive. And yeah, they're pretty good. And you know, if you haven't ever read any H.P. Lovecraft, yeah, he's a relic, yes, he was massively racist. Let's just stop stating the obvious. you have to at some point separate the art from the artist. Yeah, go read some H.P. Lovecraft. Don't necessarily tie yourself down. Read something short, and that is it. And maybe you'll like it more than me. And I hope so, because I wanted to like this game. Like, really, really, really fucking badly. Alright, peace.